What's up everybody, Adam here, and today we're going to be talking about insulation and baffles. Alright, so I'm going to go pick up some insulation. So a couple things to note here about insulation. You've got your faced and your non-faced insulation. I'm going to be using faced here because I do not have a heated or cooled living space above me. The only time you'd want to use non-faced is if you're adding to insulation or if you have a living quarters above you or a two-story home with heated or cooled space. So I live in the state of Florida, so you don't actually have to have any insulation in the garages. In the summertime though, it makes the environment quite miserable, which is why I'm going to be adding this faced insulation to my garage. Now there are different R values, with R30 being the minimum requirement for the state of Florida for heated and cooled spaces for your ceilings. Now later on down the road, I might be adding some heating and cooling to this garage. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the state required minimum of R30, and you can add to that later. So you would just add non-faced insulation to this existing insulation if you wanted to get a higher R value. Now you might have different requirements in other parts of the country, so make sure you check with your local code on what's required. Now the home I live in was built in the 80s, so there's actually a wooden soffit beyond this wall right here, and there's a cavity in there. Now what I've noticed in the rest of the houses that the insulation they did put from the 80s is actually crammed into these cavities, blocking any airflow from coming up and venting out the ceiling. So in order to prevent that, when I add this new insulation, is they make these baffles. It's kind of like an egg carton material, and you basically just you fit these egg carton baffles into the soffit cavities here. And this prevents the insulation when you install it from covering the ventilation. They're kind of flimsy, so make sure you're careful when you're stapling these up. But this should help eliminate any blockage and allow the attic to vent as designed. So at my box store, there's two variants of these baffles. One of them is the egg carton style, which we talked about earlier. The other one is this plastic style. And what I found with the rest of the house is a lot of the insulation from the 1980s has been crammed into these cavities, not allowing air to pass through them. So what I was able to do is crawl up into these attic space and fish this down into that cavity and separate from the roof and the insulation this airspace here, which is probably about an inch here, maybe a little bit more than that. But anyways, once you create that new airspace, it allows the air to flow through and do its proper ventilation. So these are really nice if you have existing insulation up there and you run into the same problem. So bare minimum tool set here needed for the installation job. Got a boss stitch, staple gun here. Definitely need gloves and eyewear. Now you certainly don't want to breathe this stuff or get anything in your eyes. Not good for you. So all we're going to do is just take this bat and we're just going to fish it up here in between the joist. Tuck it right here. Make sure you overlap into the wall. As you can see here, there's some tabs on the edges here. That's what we're going to be stapling. Alright, so you can see the R30 fills that cavity nicely. Everything's stapled tight. I'm going to be adding some 5/8 inch drywall up here in a few days. Give it a nice smooth ceiling. Other than installing some more bats, that's it. So thanks for watching.